Welcome to the land of pure nonsense, where Doodles trip over bananas, high-five ceiling fans, and argue with toasters about who's the real breadwinner. Today, oh yes, today we've gathered the silliest, dumbest, absolutely unnecessary jokes you'll ever hear. Will they make sense? Probably not. Will they make you laugh? Hopefully. Will they make your pet goldfish question reality? Absolutely. So grab your popcorn, sit on your inflatable flamingo, and get ready. Because these jokes are about to attack your brain like confetti in a wind tunnel. Let's go! Why did the cat go to art school? Because it wanted to learn paw traits. Why don't shoes ever get tired? Because they always have soul. Why did the baker go to therapy? Because he needed it. Why can't you trust balloons? Because they're full of hot air. What do you call a lazy kangaroo? A pouch potato. Why don't roosters ever get rich? Because they always work for chicken feed. What do you call a sleeping chicken? A rooster. Why was the computer so smart? It had all the bytes. Why did the belt go to school? To get a little tighter with knowledge. Why don't candles ever win arguments? They always burn out. What do you call a nervous javelin thrower? Shakespeare. Why did the fish get bad grades? Because it was below sea level. Why don't skeletons ever fight? They don't have the backbone. Why did the astronaut break up with his girlfriend? He needed space. Why was the cat afraid of the tree? Because of its bark. Why don't trees use the internet? They're afraid of logins. What did the dog say when it sat on sandpaper? Rough. Why did the drum go to sleep? Because it was beat. Why did the notebook look so tired? Too many drafts. What do you call a cow with no legs? Ground beef. What's a skeleton's favorite snack? Spare ribs. Why did the toothbrush cry? It saw the toothpaste's true colors. Why do ducks always pay cash? Because they don't like to quack up debt. Why was the clock shy? Because it was always being watched. What did one snowflake say to the other? You're one of a kind. Why did the computer sit on the floor? It wanted to crash. Why did the book go on a diet? Too many chapters. Why don't calculators get invited to parties? They're too calculating. Why was the sandwich always late? Because it was stuck in a jam. Why don't clowns ever get serious? Because their life is a joke. Why did the ghost apply for a job? It needed the booze. Why don't mountains ever get cold? They wear snow caps. Why was the skeleton always calm? Nothing got under his skin. Why did the paper look guilty? Because it was ripped. Why did the farmer plant a light bulb? He wanted to grow a power plant. What do you call a sleeping cow? A milkshake. Why don't sharks eat clowns? Because they taste funny. Why did the phone go to the doctor? It lost its contacts. Why don't bananas ever argue? They just split. Why was the pencil acting strange? It was a little sketchy. Why don't ghosts like the rain? It dampens their spirits. Why did the teddy bear refuse dessert? Because it was stuffed. Why did the baker get promoted? He really rose to the occasion. Why don't watches gossip? They don't have the time. Why did the salad blush? Because it saw the dressing. Why did the potato get hired? It was a real spud-tacular worker. What do you call a horse that loves art? A draw horse. Why don't sloths ever get stressed? Because they take it slow. Why did the firefly break up with its partner? It found someone brighter. Why did the gym close down? It didn't work out. Why did the bicycle go to therapy? It was tired of being too tired. Why was the ghost bad at lying? You could see right through it. What did the fisherman say to the fish? You're off the hook! Why don't coffee beans ever argue? Because they don't want to get roasted. Why did the cow go to space? To see the moon. Why did the music note break up? Too much treble in the relationship. What do you call a bear stuck in the rain? A drizzly bear? Why don't crayons ever win races? They always draw. Why was the calendar always popular? Because it had a lot of dates. What do you call a polite robot? Please bot. Why did the frog call his insurance company? He had a jump in his car. Why don't baseball players tell jokes? They might throw a curveball. Why did the pillow get promoted? It was outstanding in comfort. Why don't clouds ever get in trouble? They just drift away. Why was the lemon depressed? It couldn't find its zest. Why did the grape get stepped on? Nothing, it just let out a little whine. Why don't seagulls ever get lost? They always wing it. Why did the chicken go to the seance? To talk to the other side. What do you call a pig that knows karate? Pork chop. Why did the skeleton go to prom alone? He had no body to go with. Why don't rabbits tell secrets? They carrot keep them. Why was the keyboard always tired? Too many shifts. What do you call a sleeping sheep? A sheep zzz. Why did the student eat glue? Because the teacher said it was a bonding activity. Why don't volcanoes ever get in trouble? Because they lava lot. Why did the bee get married? Because it found its honey. Why don't pencils ever get jealous? They just draw the line. Why did the banana fail its test? It slipped up. Why was the football stadium so hot? All the fans left. Why did the shoe go to school? To improve its soul. Why don't penguins like talking to strangers? They find it ice-breaking. Why was the baby strawberry crying? Because its parents were in a jam. Why don't keyboards ever leave the house? They don't want to lose their space. Why did the tomato turn red? Because it saw the ketchup bottle. Why don't birds ever get sick? They have treatment. Why was the broom always tired? It swept too much. Why did the paperclip go to the party? It wanted to get attached. Why don't lions ever eat comedians? They taste funny. Why did the car apply for a job? It wanted to get driven. Why don't fish play basketball? They're afraid of the net. Why was the cat sitting on the copy machine? To make a copycat. Why did the banana sit down? Because it was feeling appealing. Why don't snowmen ever fight? They just let things slide. Why did the jelly bean go to school? To become a smarty. Why don't books ever get cold? They have good covers. Why did the pillow join the band? It wanted to be in soft rock. Why was the paintbrush sad? Because it lost its stroke. Why did the duck bring an umbrella in case of quackers? Why did the scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Why don't skeletons fight each other? They don't have the guts. What do you call fake spaghetti? An impasta. Why couldn't the bicycle stand up by itself? It was too tired. What's brown and sticky? A stick. Why did the golfer bring 2 pairs of pants in case he got a hole in one? What did the 0 say to the 8? Nice belt. Why don't eggs tell jokes? They'd crack each other up. How does a penguin build its house? Igloos it together. Why can't you give Elsa a balloon? Because she'll let it go. Why did the math book look sad? It had too many problems. What do you call cheese that isn't yours? Nacho cheese. Why was the computer cold? It left its windows open. How do you organize a space party? U-planet. What's orange and sounds like a parrot? A carrot. Why did the cookie go to the hospital? Because it felt crummy. How does a cow do math? With a calculator. What kind of shoes do ninjas wear? Sneakers. What did one wall say to the other? I'll meet you at the corner. Why did the stadium get hot? All the fans left. What kind of tree fits in your hand? A palm tree. Why did the student eat his homework? Because the teacher said it was a piece of cake. Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7 ate 9. How does a scientist freshen her breath? With experiments. What kind of music do mummies listen to? Rap music. Why do cows wear bells? Because their horns don't work. What did the fisherman say to the magician? Pick a cod. Any cod. Why was the belt arrested? For holding up a pair of pants. How do you catch a squirrel? Climb a tree and act like a nut. Why was the broom late? It swept in. What do you call a bear with no teeth? A gummy bear. Why can't you trust stairs? They're always up to something. Why did the picture go to jail? Because it was framed. Why did the tomato blush? Because it saw the salad dressing. How do you make a tissue dance? Put a little boogie in it. Why can't your nose be 12 inches long? Because then it would be a foot. Why did the invisible man turn down the job offer? He couldn't see himself doing it. Why don't oysters donate to charity? Because they're shellfish. What do you call an alligator in a vest? An investigator. Why did the man run around his bed? Because he was trying to catch up on sleep. What do you call a sleeping bull? A bulldozer. Why did the barber win the race? Because he took a shortcut. What do you get when you cross a snowman with a vampire? Frostbite. Why did the banana go to the doctor? Because it wasn't peeling well. What did one plate say to the other? Lunch is on me. Why can't leopards play hide and seek? Because they're always spotted. What do you call a pile of cats? A meowtain. What's fast, loud, and crunchy? A rocket chip. Why don't seagulls fly over the bay? Because then they'd be bagels. What do you call a pig that does karate? A pork chop. Why can't you play cards in the jungle? Too many cheetahs. Why did the chicken join a band? Because it had the drumsticks. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. What did the janitor say when he jumped out of the closet? Supplies. Why did the grape stop rolling? Because it ran out of juice. What do you call a can opener that doesn't work? A can opener. Why did the cat sit on the computer? To keep an eye on the mouse. What do you call a dog magician? A labracadabrador. Why don't cows ever have any money? Because the farmers milk them dry. Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired. What's black, white, and red all over? A sunburned zebra. Why did the frog take the bus to work? His car got towed away. Why did the orange stop? Because it ran out of juice. What do you get when you cross a sheep and a kangaroo? A woolly jumper. Why did the scarecrow eat lunch alone? Because he was outstanding in his field. Why don't ants get sick? Because they have tiny ant bodies. Why do fish live in salt water? Because pepper makes them sneeze. Why was the calendar afraid? Because its days were numbered. Why don't elephants use computers? They're afraid of the mouse. What do you call a dinosaur with an extensive vocabulary? A thesaurus. Why was the music teacher stuck outside? Because she left her keys on the piano. Why did the mushroom go to the party? Because he was a fungi. Why did the cat go to medical school? To become a paramedic. What do you call a sleeping dinosaur? A dino snore. Why do birds fly south in the winter? Because it's faster than walking. What did the duck say when it bought lipstick? Put it on my bill. Why can't you ever trust a duck? Because they're always a little quackers. Why don't bananas ever get lonely? Because they hang out in bunches. What did one elevator say to the other? I think I'm coming down with something. Why do melons have weddings? Because they cantaloupe. Why did the pencil go to the principal's office? It had a point to make. Why don't vampires attack Taylor Swift? Because she has bad blood. Why can't your hand be 12 inches long? Because then it would be a foot. Why did the turkey cross the road? To prove it wasn't chicken. Why don't koalas count as bears? Because they don't have the qualifications. Why did the fish blush? Because it saw the ocean's bottom. Why don't ghosts go out in the rain? They don't want to get booed. What kind of key opens a banana? A monkey. Why did the horse go behind the tree? To change his jockeys. Why don't oysters ever donate? Because they're shellfish. What's a vampire's favorite fruit? A blood orange. Why did the coffee file a police report? It got mugged. Why can't pirates say the alphabet? They get lost at sea. What did one hat say to the other? You stay here, I'll go on ahead. Why don't some couples go to the gym? Because some relationships don't work out. What did one ocean say to the other? Nothing. They just waved. Why did the hipster burn his tongue? He drank his coffee before it was cool. Why can't skeletons play church music? They don't have organs. What do you call a factory that makes okay products? A satisfactory. Why did the duck cross the playground? To get to the other slide. Why did the math teacher plant a garden? Because she had square roots. Why was the belt unhappy? Because it was always being buckled down. Why don't calendars ever get tired? They have too many dates. What do you call a snowman with a six-pack? An abdominal snowman. Why did the student eat a light bulb? He wanted a bright idea. Why don't pancakes tell jokes? They just get flipped. Why was the broom happy? Because it swept someone off their feet. Why did the watch go to therapy? It had too much time on its hands. What did one snowman say to the other? Do you smell carrots? Why don't bees ever get lost? They follow their buzz. Why was the light bulb so happy? It was glowing with joy. Why don't pickles play the piano? Because they can't find the right dill. Why was the vacuum cleaner always tired? Because it was always picking up dirt. Why don't clouds play cards? Because they might rain on the deck. Why was the duck so good at basketball? Because it always made foul shots. Why don't rocks ever get in trouble? Because they're solid. Why did the ladder go to school? To reach new heights. Why don't carrots ever get invited to parties? They're always rooting around. Why did the donut go to the dentist? It needed a filling. Why was the cat sitting on the TV? It wanted to be on the big screen. Why don't pens ever get lost? Because they always make their mark. Why did the frog sit on the couch? To catch up on hoppy shows. Why was the broom always excited? Because it swept the competition. Why don't zebras get speeding tickets? They're already striped. Why was the soda can shy? Because it was popular. Why did the tomato break up with the cucumber? It couldn't catch up. Why don't bears ever wear shoes? They go barefoot. Why did the bed go to school? To get more rest assured. Why don't squirrels ever get in trouble? They always act nuts. Why did the chef quit his job? He couldn't take the heat. Why don't trees gossip? They keep everything rooted. Why did the cupcake go to the party? It was muffin without it. Why don't elevators ever get tired? They always lift spirits. Why was the toothbrush always late? It kept getting stuck in traffic jams. Why don't owls ever get in arguments? They don't give a hoot. Why was the blanket always calm? Because it covered everything. Why don't clocks ever stop? Because they're always ticking. Why did the balloon sit down? It was feeling deflated. Why don't dogs ever dance well? They have 2 left feet. Why did the cow sit on the bench? It wanted to move slower. Why was the potato afraid? Because it saw the peeler. Why don't muffins ever fight? They just crumble. Why did the glass of water blush? Because it saw the ice cubes naked. Why don't pencils get sick? They have good points. Why was the stapler so popular? Because it always kept things together. Why did the leaf go to the doctor? It was feeling green. Why don't scissors ever play soccer? They always get cut. Why was the mushroom invited to every party? Because he was a fun guy. Why don't light switches gossip? They turn it off. Why was the ruler so confident? Because it always measured up. Why don't lamps ever get bored? They're always switched on. Why did the egg hide? It was a little chicken. Why don't sandwiches like the ocean?